Imagine a community where survival depended entirely on the people physically standing next to you. Now, replace that village courtyard with a neon-lit street where thousands of people move shoulder to shoulder, yet remain isolated, fixated on glowing rectangles. This map shows the topography of Nepal. Focus on these 33 hilly and mountainous districts. Over the last few decades, the population hasn't just shifted, it has drained away, pooling into the urban centers and the southern Terai Plains. When the young leave, the physical support networks of the village dissolve. We're left with an aging population living in isolation, attempting to maintain stone-built homes and terraced fields meant to be managed by entire families. For the youth who leave, sociologists describe a state of being a floating semi-proletariat. They are suspended between worlds, physically removed from their ancestral origins, but not yet anchored in their new urban surroundings. This geographical disconnection removes the physical guardrails that governed social life for centuries. When a generation is no longer tied to a specific piece of land or a local hierarchy, their sense of belonging is forced to find a new, less stable foundation. The traditional village was a network of shared physical labor. Looking at these farmers threshing grain, you see a system where collective work in the fields was the only way to secure a harvest. But as the returns on agriculture dwindled and the economy shifted, this communal system began to fray. Eventually, the village could no longer sustain the very people who lived there, forcing families to find income elsewhere. That economic shift triggered a massive internal migration into urban centers. Millions arrived in these crowded streets, seeking low-wage, temporary work in a labor market that was already oversupplied. When internal cities reached their limit, the migration went international. Today, remittances from overseas workers provide roughly 25% of Nepal's entire GDP. Generations of farmers have been transformed into global laborers. The ancestral village, once the center of their economic world, has become a place families are forced to leave behind just to secure a basic income. Once a generation is stripped of its local physical community, where do they turn for a sense of belonging? The smartphone became the primary bridge for this displaced generation. The old village network looked like this, a tight vertical cluster of deep, narrow ties held together by local elders. But as youth migrate, that structure dissolves. Their digital connection explodes into a flat, horizontal peer-to-peer network, bypassing traditional authority and physical proximity entirely. This isn't just about easier communication, it's a total shift in where authority lives. Influence has moved from the physical community to the digital screen. However, this new digital architecture lacks the social friction that naturally regulates a physical society. Peer-to-peer networks tend to form echo chambers. Without the stabilizing presence of elders or local consequences, users are exposed only to voices that reflect and amplify their own frustrations. In a village, your neighbor's disapproval was a check on your behavior. But in a digital network, anonymity removes that accountability entirely, allowing personal grievances to grow without any local social cost. When thousands of unanchored people validate each other's anger in a closed loop, small ideas can scale into mass action with incredible speed. Without physical guardrails, digital frustration can quickly transform into a real-world surge. We saw this transition in September, when youth organized on Discord to protest government corruption. This digital coordination rapidly spilled into the streets, evolving into a chaotic physical surge. It moved so quickly that even the original organizers found they could no longer direct or restrain the crowd they had gathered. Nepal's youth are a case study in what happens when a generation is hyper-connected but physically unmoored. Until we learn to build meaningful communities in a displaced world, this floating generation remains susceptible to the unpredictable currents of the digital world.